everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial in which I'm going to be talking you through how to apply the law on GBH under the Offences Against the Person Act 1861 to a scenario. And there are two GBH offences, section 18 and section 20, so sometimes students find it difficult knowing how to go about applying the law. So this video is going to talk you through the steps that you need to take to get a good answer to a scenario on this. So let's have a look at our scenario then. These are the facts that we have involving some Simpsons characters. So Bart dressed himself in a scary zombie costume and he chased Milhouse around the house. In a panic and running away from Bart, Milhouse fell down the stairs and broke his leg. And you're being asked to discuss Bart's criminal liability for this offence. Notice that this question doesn't tell you that you need to apply the law on GBH. You would have had to have read those limited facts and work out which non-fatal offence against the person it is you need to be applying. But because we've got a broken leg here, I'm hoping that you would have recognised that that is potentially GBH under section 18 or under section 20. Before we get into a suggested answer for the Bart scenario, I just want to do a very quick recap of the differences between section 20 and section 18 GBH. Now, I do have separate videos on my channel that go through all of the law and all of the cases on these two offences, but I thought a quick recap here would be helpful so that you totally understand what we're doing with our suggested answer. So section 20 GBH is the less serious of the two offences, carrying a maximum sentence of 5 years, whereas section 18 GBH is a very serious offence carrying a life sentence. And that's quite interesting, the big difference in sentences, when you recall that the actus reus for both offences is exactly the same. So we're looking for a GBH or a wound. We don't need both, one or the other will do. But section 20 and section 18, actus reus is identical, GBH or a wound. What makes them different is the mens rea. So the mens rea of section 20 is intentional recklessness as to whether some harm is caused. Notice they don't have to intend or be reckless as to whether they do GBH or a wound. They just have to intend or be reckless as to whether some harm is caused, and that comes from Savage. The reason section 18 is more serious is because it is a crime of specific intent. And that means our defendant must intend to do some GBH, i.e. they must intend to cause some serious harm. And that's illustrated from the case of Belfon, where our defendant attacked the victim with a razor, and clearly in that situation it was obvious that he intended to do really serious harm. So now we've had that quick recap, let's get back to thinking about how we're going to tackle this Bart scenario. So when you're tackling a scenario in law, whether it be criminal, contract, tort, any scenario at all, I suggest that you always follow these steps. And I call it an idea structure because each of these letters stands for the different steps that you have to take. You need to identify the potential offence, define the offence, explain the offence using cases, and then apply it all back to your characters. And when I show you a suggested answer on the next slide, I'm going to highlight these different steps that I've taken so you can see how easy it is once you know the steps to get a lovely answer. So let's take a look at a suggested answer to the Bart scenario. I've got 2 slides with a suggested answer on because I didn't want to cram too much onto one slide. But what you'll see is that I've put in red the steps that we've just been referring to. So identify, define, explain. And my second slide has the application on, which we'll get to. I've also colour-coded actus reus in green, mens rea in blue, and the cases are in purple, just to make it a bit clearer. And the first step is we're going to identify the potential offences. So I've said Bart might be guilty of GBH under either Section 20 or Section 18 of the Offences Against the Person Act 1861 when he causes Millhouse to break his leg. Notice that I've said it's either Section 20 or 18. I already know it's going to be a Section 20. However, I want to show the examiner that it could potentially be either of them because they've both got the actus reus. So I'm going to show my working and I'm going to conclude which it is. Notice that I've also identified my defendant, my victim, and I've also said what it is from the facts that have caused me to think it's GBH. So I've said when he causes him to break his leg, that's why I'm thinking it's GBH. So we're then going to define GBH, which is the offence we've identified. So both Section 20 and Section 18 have the same actus reus. So we're looking for infliction of a wound or GBH. I'm defining the mens rea of Section 20 as intentional recklessness as to whether some harm is caused, and the mens rea of Section 18 is specific intent. And I will get on to explaining my definition with cases in the next step in the E. So the actus reus of both Section 20 and Section 18 needs a wound or GBH. So I've explained that a wound is a break in the continuity of the whole skin, that comes from Eisenhower, whereas GBH means really serious harm, DPP and Smith, and it can include broken bones, a combination of injuries, HIV, herpes, and I've got cases to support that there. You don't have to use the same cases as me, but I'm just trying to explain what GBH means using some case authority. I'm then going to explain what the mens rea means. So the mens rea for Section 20 is intentional recklessness as to whether some harm was caused, and that's illustrated in Savage. Whereas for Section 18, I'd be explaining that this is specific intent, so our defendant must intend to do some GBH, as in the case of Belfon. Now, my answer is very bullet pointy for the purposes of this video. You need to be writing in full sentences in the exam, obviously. So on this slide, we've identified, we've defined, we've explained. We now need to apply it to the Bart situation. Okay, so I've moved on to page 2 of the suggested answer. We're now looking at A, the application of everything we've just explained. We're going to apply it back to Bart. Always start by applying the actus reus, and then when you've done that, move on to the mens rea. So firstly, I've said that Bart meets the actus reus of both Section 20 and Section 18 GBH, because when he chases Millhouse, he causes Millhouse to break his leg. And although he sort of chases him, he doesn't touch him, he does cause Millhouse to fall down the stairs, and an indirect action is going to be enough, as in the case of Martin. The fact that Millhouse breaks his leg and gets a broken bone, we know that's going to be classed as GBH because of the case of Wood. Now you might say, or our defendant Bart might try to argue, well, it's kind of Millhouse's fault. He's broken the chain of causation because he ran away from me. So it's not my fault, it's Millhouse's fault. But when you look at the situation that we have, Millhouse was genuinely frightened. He really thought that Bart was a zombie. If you're terrified, if you're shocked, it's going to be reasonable to run away. So he's not going to break the chain, applying the case of Roberts. So we're happy that he meets the actus reus of both. Now, to distinguish whether it's going to be an 18 or a 20, we need to look closely at the mens rea. And what I've said here is that Bart meets the mens rea for a Section 20, but probably not for Section 18. So I'm going to start by applying Section 20, which I think it is. So Bart meets the mens rea of Section 20 because although it might have been a joke, you know, he might not necessarily have intended to terrify Millhouse, he was at least reckless as to whether some harm was caused, savage. Because if you're chasing someone dressed up in a scary costume, you are at least taking a risk that they might fall over, they might encounter some harm trying to get away from you. So I think he meets section 20 mens rea, but let's consider section 18 mens rea. I've said that Bart would not meet the mens rea for section 18 because he doesn't have the specific intent to cause Milhouse serious harm. It's not like the case of Belfon. He wasn't slashing at Milhouse with a cutthroat razor. He's just done something daft that's resulted in harm, really. So he doesn't meet that mens rea. So I'm going to conclude by saying that Bart's guilty of section 20 GBH and the maximum sentence that he could face is 5 years imprisonment. So I hope that video was helpful to you, and I hope just by running through that suggested answer, you can see how you would go about applying the law on GBH. And I would always advise you, if it's GBH, to apply both of them, even if you're definitely sure it's section 20, because the actus reus is the same anyway. You only have to apply a little bit extra really for the mens rea. And this way, if you do make a mistake, and it was actually section 18, at least you're getting credit for talking about the law on section 18 as well, even if you've not done all the application of it. So I hope that was helpful for you all. If you could all carry on liking my videos, that's really helpful in me being able to produce more content to help you with your exams.